Hello and welcome to AITA at Work. This is episode number 4, and I am your host, Bailey Levesque. I am a strategic business consultant and career coach. I work primarily with women and helping them with career transitions, figuring out how to build businesses, how to start things, how to make sure things are, kind of running smoothly, how to deal with employees, how to deal with all sorts of stuff to deal with business or with their own careers. So I have a little bit of knowledge and authority for talking about these stories. The theme for today is all about family drama at work. So this is either stories about choosing work over your family, or if you're working in a business with your family, that can create a lot of tension and a lot of interesting dynamics. I work with my family quite a bit. I work with my sister, and I also work with my husband. My husband and I have a marketing agency as well. And so that goes really well for us. We've never had any issues with managing our business and running things together, but it's not always the case. Not everyone is so lucky. So I'm going to go through a few stories with you guys today, and then we'll see what we think. Typically, if you've been listening along so far, I tend to not agree with Reddit on most things, but we'll see how it goes today. I have sort of skimmed. I've looked at the headline and just a tiny bit of the actual story just to make sure that it's relevant. But for the most part, I haven't read these stories in full, so I will be blind reacting as much as possible. So let's jump into story number 1. All right, so story number 1 comes to us from r/AITA, and they were actually voted the asshole. AITA for leaving during my wife's labor. Ooh, yes, okay, I might agree with Reddit on this one. My wife went into labor around 6 p.m. on Sunday. We were expecting twins. It quickly turns into a very painful process. She kept cutting off blood pressure to my hand when she squeezed and nearly sprayed my shirt with vomit. I just have to say that's very interesting that he said that it turned into a very painful process for him while his wife is delivering twins. So I think that tells us a lot about his mindset. Around 3 a.m., my dad calls. I work for my dad's company, and we had a presentation for clients Monday morning that I had to get ready for. My dad heard my wife was in labor, and he told me that he needed me on this presentation. He said that there was nothing I could do to help my wife, and delivery and seeing the baby come out was overrated, and people don't prepare you for the gore. He said he needed me to rest up and make myself presentable for the presentation. My wife's labor was progressing very slowly, and we were all certain she would need forceps or other assistance to deliver the babies. I realized that I couldn't help her here, and my dad was counting on me, so I told her I needed to leave. She started screaming at me so loudly that a few nurses rushed over to our room. I ended up doing the presentation with the clients, and things went well. I leave the office and I see text on my phone that said my wife had delivered an hour ago at around 10:30 a.m. and that they had to use forceps. I would have missed the meeting if I stayed, and my dad has given me everything he could possibly give me in life, so I didn't want to let him down. AITA, I had responsibilities I had to take care of while my wife is still screaming at me saying that she was alone when they destroyed her body. I'm the only one who works, and her mom herself said that she was being emotional and overreacting. My wife even went as far to say that their family would disown her if she was the first of them to divorce, but she couldn't consider me her husband right now. Okay, well, that's an interesting one to start off on. So, like I said, he starts off by talking about what a painful process it is for him. I understand it's his story. He's going to tell it from his perspective. But, typically, if the husband is complaining about his, what he had to go through in the labor and how hard the labor was for him, I feel like that's not the most empathetic position. Your wife is obviously the one going through the larger trauma. And especially if they use forceps. I have not had children, so I don't know how painful this is, but I've heard so many of my friends who have had children and had to have forceps used, how excruciatingly painful that is. Even just having twins in general, that's considered a very high risk situation. So for him to not have the compassion to see why she would emotionally need him in that moment. Because he said, oh, there's nothing I can do for her. You can help her stay calm. You can help her regulate. You can help her just feel comforted and not feel alone in that situation. Instead, he did the opposite to make sure that his dad was supported and happy in that situation. So there's obviously some weird dynamics going on. There's probably been like a lot of situations in their marriage where he has chosen his family. This is probably the kind of family where they're like, hey, let's go on vacation and not bring your wife. So I don't know. He's definitely the asshole. I wouldn't say jump to divorce. I think people say that too quickly. Obviously, I think this is something that they need to work on. As a husband, it's your job to put your family first. Now that he has children, maybe that will shift something in his heart. Hopefully, he'll be able to see that he needs to prioritize his wife and his children. You know, he can see how his dad did that for him. He needs to start doing that for his family, for his children. So I hope that he starts taking, some initiative and changing his attitude a little bit. I feel really bad for his wife. I'm sure that was terrible to go through that alone. And he doesn't mention if her mom or someone else was able to be there for her. He doesn't put that context in. But if she was completely alone, I mean, yeah, super asshole. I can't imagine. Okay, so story number 2. So this comes to us from AITA, and it was voted not the asshole. So AITA for starting a business in direct competition with my father and making him lose clients. So I have a father who left our family to start a new one with a neighbor when I was 13. I never fully forgave him and even thought he tried, and still does, to make it up to me. Growing up, he would pay me to work with him in his company. It's a pretty advanced construction finishing type stuff, like custom molding for many different uses. I worked with him on and off through college, and I've gotten very good at it. He asked me to join his company full-time as an equal owner after I graduated, but my stepmom had a fit because basically she forced him to throw the stepbrother into the mix as well. I do not get along with my stepbrother, and I told my father that it's either him or me. He also did not have the right skills to work in a major capacity. To no one's surprise, my father said I needed to compromise so everyone in the family can be happy. I refused to compromise and went ahead and set up my own company. My father was upset, but I guess he figured he couldn't stop me. We continued having weekly dinners. For some reason, people are liking my company's work more. I have expanded my company more than my father ever has. I also targeted his major clients who have slowly come over to me and my company. I don't even do any of the labor myself anymore unless I want to. Last week, my father broke down and said his business was struggling to survive. I admit I did feel bad, so I offered him a full-time job in my company, and I'd buy out his tools and workshop lease. But I told him my stepmother and stepbrother are not welcome anywhere near my company. This made my father pretty angry, and we had a pretty big fight. He said I betrayed him. Then I basically told him that he betrayed me by cheating on my mother. I do feel kind of guilty I ruined my father's company he worked hard to build, but at the same time, he forced me into this position by getting his family involved. So AITA. Okay, interesting. So like I said, he was voted not the asshole by Reddit. I actually happen to agree. I don't think that he's the asshole here. I think, all's to a degree, like all's fair in business. I think going after his father's clients, using probably some insider knowledge that he would have built from working for his father's company, I think that's a little bit sus, to be honest. I don't think that that's great on him to do, but also the clients are welcome to go wherever they feel best. And if his clients weren't 100% happy with what they were getting from the father's company, but they're happy now with what they're getting from the son's company, then that's fair. If they weren't happy, then maybe they were going to go somewhere anyway. I don't know what kind of tactics, how hard it was for him to like get them to flip ship, but yeah, I completely understand. The father put him in sort of an impossible situation. So I have a lot of empathy for that. When you have that type of dynamic where there's a breakup in the family and then there's new siblings introduced and new step parents introduced, oftentimes you do see that your biological parent, they become uncomfortable with having any sort of disconnection, typically, especially because this is a cheating situation. The father probably has a lot of guilt and shame of his own that he maybe has not resolved. And by having his children not accept his new family, then he's going to feel a lot of guilt and shame built up. And that's going to trigger his guilt and shame. And he doesn't want to have that triggered, He wants to feel like, oh, well, they all get along, so everything's fine. Everything is not fine. It's clearly not fine for the son. Even just him bringing up, throwing back, you cheated on my mother. It's been, I'm guessing, quite a few years since this happened when he was 13. This is years later. I would encourage OP to work through his issues, maybe get into therapy, talk about this with someone. They could even try to do some family therapy, but only if it's like the father was willing to go without his spouse, which I think in this situation would be pretty tough to do. But I don't think that there's ever going to be full unity between his new family and his son. So I think it's very kind of him to have offered a job to his father. Hopefully he meant that with good intentions and like a genuine, compassion instead of, being like, haha, well, I have the job now, but who knows what is really going on in his heart. But it sounds like there's a lot of brokenness, that there's a lot of trapped emotions, a lot of things that are going on that people might need to work through and in a therapeutic situation. And I hope that they do that, because if he's having all this success, he's still going to struggle with, the things that are coming up emotionally. And I hope that they can work through that and resolve that. So I feel bad for him in that situation. I get it. Step siblings and step parents, it's awkward. And he's not in the wrong at all for not wanting to accept them whatsoever. Forgiving his father doesn't mean that he has to have them in his life or change any of the dynamics in their situation. So I would just also encourage him to remember that forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let them in. So don't stop yourself from forgiving them just because of that reason. Okay, so we are on to story number 3. So this comes to us again from AITA, and this time they were voted the asshole. So AITA for being frustrated with how my family treats me because I work in private equity. So a little background. I work in private equity, and it's a job that involves a lot of financial work, like investing in companies, helping them grow, and sometimes restructuring them. I generally enjoy the work, and I find it rewarding, both financially and professionally. However, lately, I've noticed a pattern where some of my family seem to look down on me for being in this field, ever since I started having huge success. They make comments about how I'm just in it for the money, and that my job is exploiting people or ruining businesses. I've tried explaining that my role in private equity is more about improving companies, helping them grow, and sometimes even saving struggling businesses. But it feels like no one wants to hear it. It's especially frustrating when it comes from people who don't really understand what I do but feel entitled to judge it. I flat out just told my brother and his wife they are just jealous, since they were constantly just roasting everything about my life, saying I provide no good to society and such. I just said it beats being jealous, unemployed, fat, and stupid, and then all hell broke loose. But at that point, I didn't even care, since I got friends that are family and such. They're trying to guilt me now. AITA. Yeah, interesting. So I was with him. I was on his side, actually, until we got to the part where he called them all fat and stupid. Yes, absolutely. I agree. That makes him the asshole. Calling people names like that, calling them, they might be jealous. I don't think he necessarily would be an asshole if he just said, you're jealous. I don't think that that's an asshole statement because it's probably somewhat true. Even if it's not, I don't think you're a huge asshole for calling someone jealous. Calling them fat and stupid, though, that's where you lose me because I don't think name calling like that is very necessary. I certainly don't think that his question was, am I the asshole for being frustrated with my family? No, absolutely not. Your family is being extremely judgmental. There's obviously something going on. It could be a principled stance. There's a lot of people that have very negative opinions of the rich or like financial kind of stuff, like finance bros, things like that. There was a whole Occupy Wall Street thing. And so if they fit into that category where they're just a little bit more, they think that things should be more equal, then, you're definitely not the asshole for that. There could be a lot of jealousy going on. There could be a lot of just feelings of tension if like they're really poor and you're like wealthier. Are you flaunting your wealth? It sounds like I don't think it's just because you work in private equity. Sometimes when you're really successful, people come for you. That's just the truth. A lot of times people have a hard time feeling happy for other people's success when they're not successful. And instead of wanting to challenge themselves to like raise their game, they're like, great, I'm going to just try to cut this person down. That has happened to me many, many times where I've been successful at something and then people get real mad about it. So I understand that. I am sorry that that's happening to you, that your family doesn't know how to be supportive and loving and compassionate about your situation, but try to be kind with how you talk to them. Or then I think the alternative is that you have to just start taking steps to have lower contact, set really firm boundaries with them, get a coach that could help you with that. That's something I work on with my clients is setting boundaries, even with family. We're talking about career stuff, and it's amazing how many times like family issues, traumas and stuff come up when I'm working with clients on like their career or like their business. So I would definitely encourage you to get a little bit of extra support so that you're not feeling so much like internal tension and frustration around it. Or if you just need help setting boundaries with your family, because I think that that's going to be necessary. Because you don't want to be the asshole who's calling them fat and stupid. That just reinforces their negative beliefs about you. So finding healthier ways to deal with it will serve you in the long run. Okay, so story number 4. So this one's a little bit longer. It comes from Best of Redditor updates. So those ones are always a little bit longer because there's multiple updates. They were voted not the asshole. So AITA for asking my in-laws where their investment in my business was. Bear with me, first-time poster. My husband, 41 male, gave me this idea. I, 44 male, bought my own restaurant when I was in my late 20s. It was a place I had worked from my teens, and when the owner retired, I was the only original employee, and I had worked my way up from busboy to office manager, general manager. They felt that I was the most logical person to carry on the name and the business, and I was more than happy and excited and willing to accept this challenge. It was a challenge, but somehow, somewhere, I was able to take things to a new level. I credit my staff for this. I am the sole proprietor. I have no outside investors or backers. I carry 100% equity and liability. I had this business since before I met my husband. This is important for later. Recently, a regular couple approached me about the possibility of buying out or going into partnership. They had been wanting to do something different, and I decided to go ahead and meet with them, but I knew that I had no intentions of taking on any partners or selling. I am too young to retire, and I'm just not ready. They made 2 offers if anyone was rejected, and both were extremely respectable and would do a lot for myself and my husband. But I told them no, that I really just was not ready or interested, and it was dropped with no hard feelings. Also, need to know, my husband is not active with the business because of his own job. But if he ever wants to spend time with me, he will come down and help out. My family has always been extremely supportive and will help out if needed. My in-laws are not active, but will come down for the occasional lunch or dinner. The other night we were having my family and my husband's family for dinner, and my husband and I were talking about the offers. His philosophy has always been, I know what's best for me and the business, so he supports any decision that I make. We were all in the kitchen, and my mother-in-law asked what we were talking about, and I filled her in on the whole situation and my decision. It was my father-in-law who made the comment that this was something that should have been discussed with the whole family since it's a family business. I asked when it became a family business because I had this long before anyone. My father-in-law said it became a family business when my husband and I got married. I then said it was still mine. We continued to argue over this for a minute, and I finally shot back. Okay, if this is a family business, then where was your investment and buy-in checks, and when did you get them? The last I knew, I was the sole owner. The conversation was shut down, and the rest of the night was tense and awkward. Later, my husband and I were talking about it. While he completely agrees with me, he said my delivery was a little asshole-ish. It's kind of been sticking with me, so I was wondering, AITA for asking where their investment checks were. Okay, there's a few edits. Before we get into the edits, again, I kind of feel like this is a little bit similar to the last story where you're not the asshole for the context of what you were trying to say, for saying that, for telling them that like it's actually my business. It's not a family business. I'm sorry that you feel like it's a family business. I'm sorry if you feel not included, but it's actually my business. So I don't think that he is an asshole for kind of standing up for himself and asserting like boundaries that way. But it's possible, and based on what the husband said, maybe he was a little bit rude about how he said it. Maybe he was a little bit more like aggressive than he needed to be. And if that's the case, I understand people get frustrated and in these situations, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find a balance, especially when it comes to family. There's so much emotions and so much can get heightened and more emotional when it comes to our family. So I would say don't beat yourself up over it, but maybe now that you're in a state where you've calmed down, it would be good to have another conversation with them, just trying to assert those boundaries that like, hey, it is my business. It's not yours. It's not a family business. It's not how we view it. We won't be making decisions like as a family in the future. But apologize if you were rude to your in-laws, then it's probably best to just offer an apology for, the tone or the aggression and how you said it. So that would be my guess. But okay, let's see if the edits adjust any of that. So edit number 1, there's actually a couple. So a lot of people have been asking about the prenup. Yes, I do have a prenuptial agreement. My mom and dad both strongly and aggressively suggested that I get one, and I had already been thinking about it and was going to talk to a lawyer anyway. The prenup basically covers me for everything I started with. I had a house before we met as well as the business. So in the prenup, it was stated that he was not able to touch any of my assets that I had prior to the marriage, and the business and houses are considered mine. I also bought a brand new car and I financed it and titled it solely in my name and paid for it. We keep our finances completely separate, and I carry the brunt of it since he moved in with me. So if anything were to happen, he can't even touch my car. I'm very well protected. Edit number 2. Thank you everyone for all your feedback. I thought I would share a little more with you. My husband is over-the-road truck driver. He is gone anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks at a time. This is one of the reasons why his involvement with the business is so limited. I spoke with him for a few minutes today, and he said that his dad called him and started on the whole thing again. My husband is really very even-tempered and hardly loses his temper, but today he ripped into his dad, tore him into pieces over the whole thing. He reminded him of the prenup and all of the reasons why this is not a family business, and why it will never be a family business, and why he or anyone else will never have any say on how the business runs or how it goes. This should hopefully shut down all of the nonsense. That's very nice. I'm glad that his husband stood up for him. A few of you mentioned my blood, sweat, and tears, and you better believe all of that. I have shed blood many times, and so have many of my staff. Sweat, yes, that as well. The kitchen feels like you are walking into the sun sometimes, and we have a full house the air can't keep up. And yes, we sweat in the dining room as well. And tears. I cried a lot last year and thought of potentially losing everything because of COVID. And it was possible. Thankfully, we are still going strong here. This is the first time ever that I have ever had any issues with my in-laws. This is a first that they have ever actually shown any interest in the business, and I'm sure, like several of you have mentioned, they thought they would get something out of it. However, they are all wrong. So thank you for your kind words. Okay, final edit. I absolutely regret nothing. Yes, it has been a challenge doing this all on my own, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. My favorite part of the night is the moment when I step into the kitchen or go into the dining room to check on things, and I hear all the conversations, the occasional, oh my God, this is so good, the sound of silverware clinking on the dinnerware, the eyeball pop, and the smile of the server getting a nice tip. I love jumping from kitchen to dining room to help clear some tables or just sit and visit for a few minutes with some customers, new or old. I love going back to the kitchen and jumping back into character and listening to all the commotion and yelling, trying to get orders straight and ready to go out. This is my passion. This is my life. This is my love. Well, that's nice. I love that he loves his job so much. That's wonderful. But yeah, I like very much that his husband stood up for him. I think that's great. That's really what you want to see, that they're on the same page, they're on the same team about all of this. It's interesting that this is the first issue that they've ever had, like with the in-laws. I wonder, even like him saying that they hoped that they would get something out of it. What could they possibly hope to get? Surely they're much older than, like, him and his husband are similar ages. So it's, I guess, maybe, yeah, I mean, it's possible that they're having some financial issues or they're concerned about retirement. I don't know if they're retirement age, but maybe they were hoping that some of the money from the business was going to help fund their retirement. I've seen that kind of come up before where it's not really discussed, but then suddenly there's these big expectations from parents that you're going to pay for their retirement. So potentially something like that is going on here. But yeah, I'm glad that they're on the same page. I'm glad that he loves this job. I am glad that he stood up for himself. If his very even-tempered husband also lost it on the parents, maybe the in-laws are just being stubborn as all get out. And it's maybe they just needed a more aggressive tone. I'm not sure. I understand, not the asshole. I wouldn't say that he's the asshole. The in-laws, they need to have a more direct conversation about, why are you insisting that you get a portion of this business? Is there something going on? Is there something that you need? I feel like there's a little bit of context being missed here. So yeah, not the asshole. Very interesting. Glad he loves this job. If I knew where it was, I'd go visit it myself because it sounds like it's a great place. So let's jump into story number 5. So this one comes to us from Best of Redditor Updates as well, and they were also voted not the asshole. So siblings 36 male and 32 female want to come into the family business after I expanded it. I'm unsure if this is the right subreddit, but I need advice on a family/business relationship. My dad, 65 male, is a heavy diesel mechanic and runs a small workshop his whole life. I, 29 male, have always been interested in his work since I was a kid. I would always come out and help him on weekends. I went to university and studied mechanical engineering and commerce, but struggled and dropped out to travel the world for a year. My siblings, 36 male and 32 female, are both in investment banking and are successful in their careers. Since I was 23, I have worked with my dad as a mechanic and slowly have taken over his workshop. When I started, he had 2 part-time mechanics and 1 car in 2017. I have brought in several new strategies, such as focusing on commercial verticals only, off-hour services, etc., and we have grown to 35 employees and 15 cars. Wow! We went from $250,000 in revenue to just shy of $7 million this financial year. Good for you. My dad only works in the workshop while I'm in more of a 20-80 workshop to office split. COVID has meant that our business has grown tremendously in the last few years. A few weeks ago, my dad's 65th birthday dinner, and he talked about the numbers of the business, and everyone was shocked. No one in the family has ever visited our workshop or asked about it. Since then, he has been thinking about the succession plan after my siblings have been asking about it. He proposed the following idea to me. I get 40% of the business and they get 30 and 30. My sister would get a manager position, and she's looking to leave the IB world to start a family, and my brother would get the same as well if he wants it. I noted everything he said and just asked for some time to think. They started proposing some of the most insane ideas without any context of the business. I'm seriously annoyed. My dad has run this for 32 years, but only since I joined did we expand. I admit I did use my dad's network, reputation, skill, and initial workshop to get a head start. But it was my idea to expand, to get a bigger workshop, and to implement risky ideas. I don't think my siblings, who have never even asked about the business, should get cushy, high-paying jobs for doing nothing. If we wanted a $200,000 a year manager, I would get one with some industry experience. I've spoken to him briefly, but he was shocked about my reaction. And he said it was his dream to have all of his children work in the business, but my mother and brother and sister have never even picked up a spanner before in their lives. I've been hanging around since I was 12. He always said it would be mine. I don't want to have to answer to a board of my siblings who I get the vibe they think they are smarter than me just because they finished university. I built this business with just my dad and want to keep building it with him without my siblings. I can see it from their point of view, as this is a family business. My dad started, and my dad wants me to make more of an effort to include them. But I feel they only want to be included because we are now successful. Of course, they only want to be included now that you're successful. I'm being accused of being greedy and entitled by my family. I think this is ridiculous, and the business is mine after spending the last 6 years building it. I would love some outside perspective on this situation. I just wanted to give a quick update. Thank you for the amazing advice and for linking Plumber's story. Reading that really scared me, and it basically happened to me. Some quick points. I haven't read the Plumber story, so I'm actually not sure what he's referencing there. I will find it though, and I will link it below so that you can read that one if you want. I can't really sell my shares or this business. We are a service business where we get paid for the work we have done, and we have assets, but it's like dirty utes and tools worth hundreds of thousands new, but nothing on the second-hand market. We had a family business lawyer meeting last night, and I don't know what is happening. My sister and brother have been lobbying my dad about the direction and strategy of the company before this for weeks. They feel it would be in better hands with my sister being CEO, my brother being CFO, and me as a COO, glorified operations manager. And unfortunately, my dad agrees with them. Okay. During this session, I felt incredibly patronized. They laid out this 5-year plan and how the company would grow to be this huge entity and we would own equal amounts of it. They didn't talk to anyone in the actual business about this plan or even our customers. They wanted to make things standard, but the reason our customers love us is that we are flexible and accommodating. I asked a few questions to see how set my dad was on this plan, and I realized he was really excited. I tried to argue the current business was 50-50, my dad's and me. Therefore, it should be split 66%, 17, and 17. Their huge salaries would be better off hiring mechanics to grow. I was told everyone is replaceable by my sister. This crushed me because I don't think that's true. I have so much tacit knowledge, and the 27 mechanics are loyal to me. I secured our biggest 10 customers only in the last 15 months because I have this reputation as a mechanic who went to uni and worked on the tools. I know I leveraged this in the bidding process over other companies. This isn't like a public company. Everything in this industry is relationships. I've been reading The Art of War this last month, and I decided I'm not going to voice any more concerns. I'm going to go along with the plan and let my emotions mellow out and wait till I can think of some options. Okay, there's another update that comes 10 days later. I'm unsure if I should just keep editing the update or post an update of its own. I'm finding updating this therapeutic, and it's beneficial to know that other people agree with me as everyone around me thinks I'm crazy. Unfortunately, the nuclear option needed to happen. Okay, so before I read this, because I have no idea what he's going to say, but I feel like we've read that story before where the son started his own business and then overtook the father. I actually feel like that's what this guy should do in this situation. You're the one that's built up these relationships with these giant clients. There's no reason. Pick the client that you have the strongest, deepest relationship with. And if you can get them to agree to go with you, then, you could be golden and just build something yourself, and then you get 100% of it. The fact that they're patronizing him and saying, not giving him credit for the amazing work he's done to build up this business is baffling to me. I don't know, is the father delusional? Does he think that he is actually the one that grew this business when the business was consistently in one place until his son came on and it grew and blew up? I find that very crazy and baffling, but a lot of parents are delusional. And the brother and sister are super delusional for thinking they have no business knowledge, no domain knowledge in this area, that they can just walk in and just take over and they'll be even more successful because they're there. I'm sorry, taking a business from $250K to $7 million a year in 6 years is crazy. It's very impressive. He's done a great job and he needs to be treated with respect for the job that he's done. So let's see what the nuclear option was. My sister and brother came to the workshop to get onboarded last week. They both wore pastel polos to a mechanic shop and refused to shake anyone's hands because our hands were covered in grease. My dad was so excited to show them around, and let's just say none of these dudes were too impressed. I went to my mom and dad's after to talk. I expressed some thoughts and feelings, but they were so dismissive. I tried to pitch some of the ideas in the comments, slower start to joining the business, but they just felt everything would work out. I just lost it. I told my dad he was a shit mechanic and I would never hire him. He is sloppy and inefficient. I asked him why he was never on the road. Why does he only work on ad hoc random issues and never works on routine repairs or servicing on our biggest clients? He is slow. He doesn't know how to use the latest tools and technology. He doesn't even know how to update the iPad checklist forms that I created at the end of the servicing, and he sometimes misses checks. I partner the first year apprentices with him because he doesn't clean up the tools after himself properly. He doesn't wipe them down, and he places them back in their allocated spot for the next person. They have to do it for him. Okay, so this answers a question. I don't know how the dad, if he's still just been being a mechanic this whole time and not really that involved in the business development side, could think that he had anything to do with why this business has suddenly grown so much. I told them I don't want to work in a family business. I have always felt like the black sheep of my family. My older siblings were close, but I felt excluded. They constantly lectured me about how I should just go back and finish my degree rather than waste my life in a workshop working on a dead-end job. And now, after they've seen the success of this dead-end job, they want to come in. I'll save Reddit from all the points, but a lot of resentment and issues have come up. After that talk, I knew what I needed to do. I went to one of my biggest clients and my mentor, the CEO, 55 male of a logistics company, and told him the story. He offered me a $250,000 loan over 3 years to start my own shop. I signed the lease at our old workshop and spent my money on 4 cheap utes and close to $45,000 in tools. I've already confirmed, oh, this is so good. Already confirmed with our 8 biggest customers to move to my new workshop, which is close to 65% of our total revenue. I have confirmed with 7 of our best mechanics. They will move to my shop. All welcome over any of the other boys once the news breaks. I just copied our previous employment contracts off a template, so there is no conflict. Yeah, I've never seen a mechanic get a non-compete. That would be crazy. I know this is going to blow up the family and will decimate the old business. I did try talking to my sister about the changes, but she treated me like a little kid that just got lucky. My dad was delusional and too excited to see all his kids working in the same business. To me, it was never about money or greed. During my time, my title was boss's son. I just loved leading a team of solid boys working outside, fixing stuff that broke with my pops. I know the culture and business I built were gone, so I don't feel I'm destroying anything, but I feel guilty. Oh, I'm so happy for him. That's awesome. It's exactly what he needed to do. It's exactly the right move. Especially before, he didn't sign anything legally, I'm assuming. If he had gone into full negotiations, signed things with the lawyers where, he gets the split and whatever, and they're part owners and all of that stuff. If he had started to do that, then he could have been in a position where he had a non-compete, but he didn't have a non-compete. And so, yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm really happy for him. I hope he's doing really well still. And yeah, his brother and sister deserve what they get. The reality is, if they think they're such business geniuses, then okay, great. You're in the business now. The business needs to grow it. If you're so great at it, then do it. And it really goes to show people so often take for granted the value of relationships in business. I had a situation where I had partnered with a couple people on a business, and they thought that, I was just kind of a wasted element. I was doing all of the account management, and they didn't think that I was needed in the business and they could do everything without me. And then they could take my 33% and then split it between the two of them. And yeah, they learned very hard, a very hard lesson that I was the one that had really actually built that business. And all of the clients were loyal to me, had the relationship with me. And as soon as I was gone, the clients all came with me. So I now have, and for the last 6 years, have had a very successful and thriving marketing agency with my husband. And both of them, I don't even know what they do. But last I'd seen, they just work for other people and pretty mid-tier jobs. So sometimes people need to learn the hard way. And his siblings are going to learn the hard way. And they're going to have to, prove themselves. If they really think they can do it, then great. Then do it. Then find other clients, grow them. If the business didn't need your brother, then do it without him. Don't feel salty about it. Just do it without him. Okay, so we are on to story number 6. This one comes from AITA, and they were voted again, not the asshole. So I'm very interested. I have no idea what the context of the story is. But from the title, it's Would I Be the Asshole for Telling the Truth About Why I'm Closing the Family Business? When I saw this title, I was like, oh, I wonder what the reason is. So let's find out. I took over the family business from my mom 7 years ago. It came as a nasty surprise to find out that it came with $15,000 plus of debt I was now responsible for. This pretty much sums up how the financial aspect has gone. It's run out of her home and I rent the ground floor. The stress of paying her bills while my employees and I barely make minimum wage finally came to a breaking point 2 weeks ago when I found out that she flat out lied to me about the mortgage she took out last year. The house was on a land contract, so she had to mortgage it to get a loan for a new garage. She upped my rent, saying the mortgage covered the land contract, garage, and adjoining lot she owns, and escrow. I argued that I don't use the lot or garage and have never paid the property taxes, but it didn't help. 2 weeks ago, I found out that the mortgage actually covers the land contract, garage, my mom's car, motorcycle, and 4 credit cards. She rolled $32,000 of her debt into this mortgage. She's making me pay 60% of it. The land contract I originally agreed to pay is 40% of the mortgage. That was the final straw, and I notified the customers that we're closing in June. She doesn't know I found out about the mortgage. I've had clients and people in my personal life asking me what happened to make me close so abruptly. I've been telling half-truths as I'm not comfortable putting this drama out there. I've told a handful of trusted friends and family, and nobody has been surprised, and they're all supporting me in this. But would I be the asshole if I threw caution to the wind and started telling the truth? Not the full rundown with figures, but a simple, my mom has been taking advantage of the business financially, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. Am I just being petty? I'm too close to the situation to see it clearly. Interesting. Okay. Well, now we know. So that makes sense why you would want to close it. Obviously, they don't give any context about what the business is. I don't really understand, okay, so you're renting the ground floor for the business in some capacity from your mother. Are you obligated to only be allowed to run the business out of this location? Are you not able to move? I don't have any context or any additional knowledge of that. So that seems a bit weird to me, but fine. If he's just fed up with it and wants to move on, I totally understand that. I don't think that they'd be the asshole for telling the truth in this situation. I think, like you said, keep out the gory details. You don't need to get super specific. You don't need to be hyper disparaging about it. But you're not the asshole for just telling the truth. I'm sure some of your clients, I have no idea what business this is. So I'm sure some of your clients will be a bit confused. Some of them might be a little bit sad or put off. And, you never know. It could end up being a situation like the last guy where you tell people the truth about this situation. I'm going to have to close. This is why. Maybe one of them has a solution for you. Maybe one of them has a job for you and for some of your employees. So no, I think the truth is always the best side to lean on. And I think that it would be good for you to just go ahead and be honest, while not being too gory and disparaging in the details. All right, so this is our final story. It is story number 7, and it comes to us from AITA, and they were voted not the asshole. It is another little bit of a long one, so bear with me. AITA, my dad gave the business to my brother, so I left. Original post was a year ago. My older brother, 30 male, went to university and then worked in the city as an accountant. I, 27 male, stayed to work for my dad as a plumber at 15 and went to college to get my qualifications in plumbing and gas. About the time COVID started, my brother moved back from the city and started working for my dad, 55 male, in accounting. My dad has been unwell for the last 4 years due to asbestos and has been really hard on the family, and he's getting worse, but is still loving life. I have been running the business for the last 2 years, and we have expanded. And now we have 50 vans in the fleet and 1 trainee allocated to each van. COVID was hard in the beginning, but we have bounced back. My dad still works on tools with me on Fridays, half day, and then back at my place for some beers. Friday is the only day I'm on tools now, and I'm doing everything to run the business. Well, last month, he told the family he's stepping down from the business due to health and wants to spend more time with my mother, and is giving the business to my brother for me to step down from acting CEO. This upset me. I've been with the business for 12 years. At the beginning, it was only me and my dad, and my brother never wanted to be in the business. Said it was not worth his time, and now he's the boss, and I've been dumped back to a heating engineer with a $20,000 a year pay cut. He doesn't have any clue what we do or how we do it. This is so similar to the other story. I apologize if that feels redundant. I was not aware they were going to be so similar, but we'll find the differences in them. I spoke to my dad, and he told me that my brother deserved it for all he has done, that he has a family and I don't, and that he went to uni, and a lot of workers were upset with the decision and have told me they will go where I go. I told my dad that if this is how he feels, then I will leave and start my own business. I have not spoken to my dad or my brother since, and I have told them to never contact me. For the last month, I've had thousands of calls and messages from my family saying some very hurtful things and telling me I'm ungrateful for what I have. So AITA. Okay, here's the first edit. I want to say thank you to everyone for your kind words. There are so many to reply to. I'll do my best to thank you all. To hear my father tell me in his own way he doesn't think I'm good enough was hard, and for my family to take his and my brother's side was even harder. In the morning, I will contact large clients I've worked with over the past 6 years. I know we had some site postponed due to COVID, which will be big money. I will try to take them over. I have 20 of my colleagues wishing to come with me. I've saved nearly all the money I've earned over the last 12 years, so I think I have enough to get myself on my feet. Okay, update number 1. I want to inform everyone that I'm not starting a business to destroy my brother. As much as I've spent almost 13 years to build it, and I don't want to see anyone out of a job or for the business to die. It's about 5 o'clock in England, and you've all helped me so much. I will be going over to talk to my father about 8 o'clock and take him out for breakfast and talk. I'm not sure if I will get a proper answer from him, but I love my family and I want my future kids to know them. I will update after the events of later today. Okay. Update number 2. As I said in one of the comments, I believe my family has found my post, and they did. This morning when I arrived at my parents' house, my mom opened the door and looked like she had been crying a lot, and my dad came over to talk to me, and we went over for breakfast. He didn't say a word on the way there or when we arrived. When on the way back, he asked if we could pull over and talk. I can honestly say this was the first time I saw my dad cry. I asked why he did this to me, and he said he doesn't know. I keep pushing, and he finally told me he owed it to my brother for not being about for him as much as me when we were growing up. And there was times my brother needed him, but he was working. I couldn't believe it. After 12 years of hard work, that was his reasoning. I told my father I'd spent half my life working to do everything for the business, and how he threw me to the side just because his son came back hurt more than I could explain. He told me he knows that this is kind of prodigal son, the way that he explained that, that Bible story. The father has the inheritance, and there's the one son. He wants to take his inheritance early before his father dies. And then he goes and he blows it all on the equivalent of drugs and hookers. And then he comes back, and then he wants to be taken back in and taken care of. And then the son that's been working and doing good this whole time feels really salty about that and doesn't want to have to share more of his inheritance. Because if his inheritance is still in with the father's farm and business and whatever. And so if the son that took his inheritance out and blew it all comes back in, it's diluting from his share of what should be his. This very much reminded me a little of that. So yeah, let's see if they resolve this. To my surprise, he wasn't mad. He seemed remorseful. He told me my mother has been in pieces after reading the comments about how bad she treated me and thinks I will never talk to them again. My dad told me after reading it all, he has realized that he should have split the business between us as it will need both of us to keep progressing. He apologized to me for never telling me how proud he was of everything that I had done, and he thought that I knew how proud he was. But my brother has full control of my father, and he has no say anymore. And my brother would never go 50-50. He told me he wants me to go back as my brother will need me, and I told him that's not my problem anymore after he demoted me and cut my pay. I tried to make it work for 3 weeks, but my brother wouldn't listen, didn't believe that I know what I was talking about, and is telling me he knows how to run a fun business. So I left. Why work my ass off there when I could do the same work and make more money for myself? My dad broke down and said that he had destroyed the family and should have never done what he did. I don't understand why I took this long to realize I was a valuable piece in the company. Update number 3. As I said, I have had a couple of Zoom calls with some clients today, and they have gone very well. I have been informed that they will be sending me signed proposal letters for the up-and-coming work. Lucky the site start dates don't clash, and that was one of the main things that I was worried about. 3 of my colleagues have now left the business and have spoken to my dad, informing him about why they left, and that they will be coming to work with me under their own choice, and to hear them say that meant a lot. They have all been between 5 to 10 years more experience in the industry, and at the moment, I have all we need to start a new business. With 3 vans, I own the tools, and I have built up over the years. I am looking forward to start a new venture in my life, and I can't wait to share this with my children when I have them. Then I received a call from my father asking me to come over for dinner. I was unsure at first, but I thought I was probably a step in the right direction. On arrival, my whole family was there. I went in and the atmosphere dropped. My mom wouldn't look at me, and my brother just sat there acting as if I didn't exist. My dad came and asked me and my brother to come into his office. He started to ask when I was going to return to the company, as they need me in early Monday morning. I could not even believe what I was hearing. I told them both I'm not coming back, and I have started my own company. And what does he mean? We gave the business to him, my brother. My brother started to lose his temper, telling me if I cared about a company, why would I leave? I have some very choice words before telling him that I've always cared for the company and spent 12 years of my life working to make it successful. Unlike him, who swans in and takes all the glory, and that I will not sit there and be treated like that. I told my brother to F off so I could talk to Dad. I asked what was all this mourning, all telling me he's sorry, but then he expects me to go running back. He couldn't even look at me in the eye, so I left, said goodbye to my cousin, nieces, nephews, and walked out. And I've been riding for about 3 hours on and off, coming back on here to talk to people. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for the personal message, comments, rewards, all kind words and encouragement. I'll try to message everyone, but I'm exhausted and will most likely fall asleep. Okay, final update. Sorry it's been a while. I've had a lot going on the last couple of weeks. I'll try and explain the most I can. So the new business is going very well, and we have a lot of work coming in and making good money. At the end of the year, I will be looking at expanding, so I'm very happy with that. Me and my fiance are very happy. She's busy planning the wedding of her dreams and wants me to wear a suit, but tough luck, I'll be in my kilt. I couldn't be happier than I am right now, waking up to her every day. She is there for me no matter what, and she has been my rock through everything. Then my family, my father and brother still refuse to talk to me and have told me that they will not be attending my wedding even though they haven't been invited. My mother was called by my fiance, but hasn't said much, only to ask about wedding stuff and will not talk to me. My fiance's family have been amazing. My soon-to-be in-laws have been helping with the wedding and everything else, and I'm extremely thankful for everything that they have done. My other family has now backed off and apologized and want to make amends for everything that was said. Me and my fiance have set the wedding in November. We sat down together and decided to try having children after we're married. We're both excited to be parents. Okay, so very similar to a couple of the other stories that we had there. This whole idea of, fathers having businesses or a parent having businesses, and then they don't seem to value the work that the one child has done working in the business, doing more of the grunt work. It comes back to this idea that I've seen time and time again of, a lot of times bosses in general, not even just parents, but bosses have a hard time seeing you differently than the role that you started in. I've seen this and heard this from so many people. A lot of people struggle to get promoted within the company that they're in these days because if you become a subject matter expert, you're so good at the job that you're currently doing, people don't want to move you out of that position. They're actually afraid to move you out of that position, or they just don't know how to see you as a different person, see you as a manager or whatever it is. So it kind of reminds me of that. And I think that that's a lot of what's happening. Parents oftentimes have a hard time changing their perspective of their own children. Their children are little, whatever they were when they were younger. Sometimes they have a really hard time shifting that mindset and seeing them as different people, even when they've proven that they're very different. So if he's always felt like the black sheep and he's been the one kind of working, getting his hands dirty, but also managing and doing all this business development stuff and handling the other elements, the father is kind of stuck in his mindset of what his two different sons are. And he's just like, oh, okay, well, this one is the one that's like, more university trained, more in like the professional role, and has this weird guilt that he needs to make it up to him. It's weird. And I feel bad for him that, he's loves his family, he cares about them, and he wants to have them in his life, and he might not be able to. But a lot of times we don't actually get a choice on everyone that stays in our life. Sometimes people make that decision for us, and it can be painful and it can suck. He's moving on. He's getting married. He's going to have his own children. I would strongly encourage him to maybe work with a coach, work with, a therapist or something before he starts having children. He's going to have issues that he may not even be consciously thinking of, but he's going to have issues internally that he might need to work through so that he doesn't kind of put things on his children or follow same patterns. So I would just encourage him to do that, but obviously not the asshole. I love all these stories that we've had that people get to, people tried to kind of pass them over and put them down and keep them in their place. And they said, no, I'm not going to just stay where I am. I'm going to rise and I'm going to be successful. I love that. I absolutely love it. So yeah, great story. All right. So that is all the stories I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. I've learned a few things today. Mainly, don't pick stories that are written by Scottish people because they write like they talk, and it was impossible to follow in that last story. So I apologize. I'll try to edit out as many as the goof ups as I had there. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful or inspiring. If you're in this situation, which honestly, there were so many stories that were, even just in the ones that I picked out, that were about getting passed up by a parent in like a business situation. And so if that's something that you're struggling with, if you're going through career transition or trying to start a business or dealing with family issues, like personal, emotional stuff, I'd love to talk to you as well. Like I said, I am a strategic business consultant and career coach. I also have a background in doing, a little bit of somatic work, and I actually have a diploma in counseling and worked as a counselor for a number of years. So I'm well versed in understanding the multiple layers that come up when it comes to workplace emotions, especially when it relates to family. It makes it so much trickier to navigate what's already complicated in the workplace when it's your family. So if that's you, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to help you. You can see the link to my website below. I do give free consultations, but also if you're just enjoying these stories and you don't really need any help, then I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're listening, and I hope that you enjoy them. I'm just going to keep sharing stories, and hopefully they resonate with you guys. And yeah, all the best in your workplace this week, and we'll see you again next week.